I'm terminating your employment with the branch manager's authority, effective today. Thank you for your hard work until now.
On the verge of retirement, I had moved away from the hectic front desk operations to handle quieter back office tasks. The new, young, and dynamic branch manager, branding it as Reform, began to dispose of anything and anyone deemed unnecessary or in the way. Not just objects, but jobs and people too. I don't understand why I'm being fired. I protested, to which the branch manager replied with an exasperated tone.
You're in the way, just lounging around at your desk, doing menial tasks anyone could do, and acting all important. It's irritating to watch.
The manager spouted such absurd reasoning shamelessly. So, they were just menial tasks that anyone could do leisurely. If it was an official order, then I guess there was no helping it. I decided to follow the manager's directive obediently. A week later, I received many calls from the bank. My name is Robert. I'm a bank employee, often working behind the scenes. I'm currently 51 years old. I've stepped back from the busy front desk operations and now mainly handle small administrative tasks. I also assist long-standing customers occasionally. Watching the young employees hustle at the front desk reminds me nostalgically of my younger days. Working leisurely on minor tasks, I have no prospects for further promotion and am just waiting for retirement. But I've grown to like my current role. It's a calm way of working that suits an employee nearing retirement. In fact, most employees around my age at our branch gradually start to scale back their workload. Many retire early to enjoy their later years. Whether for early retirement enjoyment, family matters, or various other reasons, spending time with family, looking after grandchildren, it seems like the right time for a lifestyle change. Just the other day, a branch manager retired before reaching retirement age. He wanted to take care of his family back home. Today, we're getting a new branch manager as his replacement.
Hello everyone, I'm assigned as the new branch manager here from today. My name is Mark. Looking forward to working with you all.
Mark, the new branch manager, greeted the staff energetically during the morning meeting. He looks about 10 years younger than me. Dressed in a crisp suit and sporting an expensive-looking watch. His eyes were shining with determination. His intense demeanor made me think following this guy is going to be tough.
Oh, you there. Can you give me a tour of the branch right away?
Me? Sure, I'll show you around.
Thank you. Everyone else, please start your usual tasks. Don't mind me, just carry on as normal.
Mark approached Susan, a young female employee, and started touring the branch. The rest of us, including myself, got on with our usual tasks.
Excuse me, what task are you working on?
Suddenly, a loud voice from above startled me. Whoa, you scared me. I accidentally blurted that out. Looking up, I saw Mark, arms crossed and looking somewhat disgruntled, with Susan glancing over in a puzzled manner.
What's this?
Mark asked, looking at my work. I honestly replied, I'm checking and entering application forms. Mark then sighed heavily.
Honestly, I've never seen such a laid-back workplace before.
He complained with a look of utter exasperation. By laid back, you mean?
Exactly as it sounds. At the branch I worked at before, no employee would spend time on such tasks. I'm surprised to find employees specialized in back office work here.
Checking and entering documents may not be a big job, but it's necessary. In tasks involving large amounts of money, even small mistakes aren't tolerated. I think someone has to do it. I don't know how it was at his previous branch, but was there really no one doing back office work? I almost retorted that, but it felt too bothersome. So I just responded nonchalantly, "Is that so?" and forced a wry smile. Susan, who was anxiously watching, seemed pitiful. I thought if I let it slide, Mark would just leave, but for some reason, he stayed and seemed to be contemplating. Then, with a decisive nod as if having made up his mind, Mark started speaking to no one in particular.
Decided, starting tomorrow, this branch will undergo a reform.
The next day, true to his word, Mark began implementing reforms at the branch. First, he replaced almost all the equipment in the office with new ones. I wondered where the budget for that came from. Then, he increased the workload of the younger and mid-level employees, especially at the front desk. The clerical tasks that used to be sent to the back office were now less frequently assigned to me. Thanks to this, the peak-age employees who were already busy seemed even busier than before.
Once I achieve the reform of this branch, its sales will increase even more. This will benefit all the employees, and I'll climb higher too.
Mark was overheard saying this excitedly to the younger employees. In reality, since his arrival, the young employees' sales performance had improved slightly. Maybe it's the result of Mark's Spartan-style leadership. As for me, watching Mark and the young employees, I thought to myself, being young is incredible, as if it didn't concern me. So, I never imagined that this reform would turn against me. One day, Mark called me to his office. I was surprised as he hadn't spoken to me since his first day. "Do you need something?"
Yeah, I'll keep it short since I'm busy.
He said that as he thrusted a piece of paper at me.
With the branch manager's authority, I'm terminating your employment, effective today. Thank you for your hard work until now.
"Yes," I responded, tilting my head reflexively in confusion. Mark's loud voice meant that other nearby employees could hear my sudden termination notice. The surroundings began to buzz with whispers. I thought I had misheard, but the document clearly stated it was a termination notice.
You'll be compensated for your services accordingly. We'll handle the difficult procedures, so please pack your belongings and leave.
Mark spoke rapidly, then turned away to return to his work. I was utterly confused, so I confronted him. "Wait a minute, I don't understand why I'm being fired. Have I done something detrimental to this branch?" Despite my stern questioning, Mark didn't look at me and said,
We'll properly offer you a retirement package.
"That's not what I'm talking about. I'm asking if I violated any employment rules or made any major mistakes. This is wrongful termination." Mark sighed wearily and finally turned to face me.
You're violating your duty of dedication to your job. Bank officers and employees must be aware of their public mission, conduct their duties with integrity, and strive for smooth processing. That's in the regulations.
"How am I violating that? Please be specific."
This is tiresome. You're not keeping up with the new equipment and systems, still using the old ones, causing delays in work. Don't you see?
Mark ranted impatiently. "Have I ever delayed any work deadlines? I don't think I've caused any delays in work."
It's wasteful how young employees have to teach you to use the new equipment or wait for your verification on everything. It's hindering smooth operations.
That's an outrageous accusation. Anger seeping in my voice, Mark clicked his tongue and stepped closer, intimidatingly looking down at me.
You're in the way. You are.
Mark said that, almost spitting the words out.
While other employees are bustling around, you're just lounging at your desk, doing menial work that anyone could do, sitting back after finishing such trivial tasks. It's irritating to watch.
Mark, not even trying to hide his malice anymore, was unreservedly harsh in his words, despite speaking to someone older than himself. I'm neither lounging nor sitting back arrogantly, so basically, you want to fire me not because I'm a detriment to the branch, but simply because you're annoyed with me. I found myself responding calmly, even in the face of Mark's irrational logic.
Think whatever you want. Layoffs for staff restructuring aren't uncommon. If you're gone, we can hire more competent, younger employees at the right time.
Mark responded with a snort.
Excuse me, but I think a dismissal without a rational reason counts as an abuse of managerial power. Besides, the back office work, which was Robert's responsibility, was a task assigned by the previous branch manager and was supposed to continue this fiscal year.
Susan, who had been anxiously observing our argument, interjected timidly. Following her, other employees started murmuring in agreement, whispering, "That's right, it's an abuse of power."
Then, from this very moment, back office work is abolished.
Mark shouted out loud, not caring who was watching. Thankfully, it was after business hours, and no customers were around.
I'm the branch manager now. The previous one might have tolerated it, but I don't need incompetence in my branch. If anyone else objects, you're fired too. There are plenty of replacements.
The other employees quickly averted their eyes. But only Susan kept looking at Mark, albeit shrunken in fear. If this goes on, Susan will be his next target. Realizing this, I took a deep breath and, with a calm smile, said, "Understood. If the task is being abolished, I accept the dismissal." Everyone, including the surrounding employees and Mark, were momentarily stunned by my sudden acceptance of the order. However, let me give you one piece of advice. Everything you've said and our entire conversation has been heard by other employees. Everything. So, please make sure you have no regrets.
Ah, regrets? What are you talking about? It's good that you understand. I'm really relieved that you're taking it so well.
That was the end of our conversation. I packed my things that day and completed the minimal handover. It was extremely disappointing to leave the bank I had worked at for over 20 years in such a manner. But as I was leaving, the employees I had worked with for years expressed their sadness at my departure. Some even shed tears. Despite their pleas for me to reconsider, I replied, "I appreciate your sentiments," and went home. A week passed. With no job to go to and no need to wake up early, my sleep schedule was irregular. One day, I woke up around 10 a.m. Picking up my phone, I noticed dozens of missed call notifications. All of them were from the bank I had been dismissed from a week ago. What's this about? I wondered, but before I could ponder further, the phone rang again. Reluctantly, I answered the phone only to be immediately greeted by a familiar shouting voice asking, "What in the world is going on?" So loud. "Is that you, manager? What's this all about?"
What do you mean? What have you done? Tell me the truth.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Start from the beginning. As I asked for an explanation, Mark began to tell me about what had happened over the past week. A few days after I left, major clients started canceling their accounts. The internal back office operations were on the brink of collapse, barely functioning. Throughout his explanation, Mark sounded panicked, but honestly, I couldn't care less. That's why I warned you. I muttered, astounded. Back when I was a newbie at the bank's counter, lacking confidence in my abilities, I spared no effort to improve my communication and interpersonal skills. As a result, I could handle even the most difficult customers or explain complex issues without trouble. The customers I occasionally served in my 50s were all long-time clients who relied on me. They trusted me more than any other employee for my clear and concise explanations. Among them were many of Mark's so-called major clients. Wealthy people are cautious with their money. They don't entrust their assets to a bank with interest-worthy people. That's why I always prioritize trust with clients. In just 1 week, he managed to ruin the trust I built over 20 years. I was beyond anger or sadness. I was just dumbfounded. I don't know why all the major clients left at once, but what do you mean by back office work on the brink of collapse? Isn't it easy and leisurely work that anyone can do? I retorted with a rare touch of sarcasm, mirroring the words Mark had previously used to me. I know all too well that back office work isn't as easy as it was made out to be. I was determined to let him know. As I approached retirement, turning 50, I had moved away from the front desk operations to handle nearly all the processing tasks that other employees couldn't manage. Each task, though simple on its own, amounted to a tremendous volume of work, taking as much time and effort as the front desk duties. Spending all day with numbers and documents is more tiring than one might think, and many give up after a few days. Living alone with no particular hobbies, finding joy solely in work and constantly learning new things, perhaps I was an exception. Regardless, I've always believed there's no such thing as an idle task in a bank.
How pretentious! You must have bad-mouthed our branch to your clients out of spite.
Absolutely not. As a professional, I would never say anything that could damage the branch's reputation for personal reasons. I merely sent thank you letters to the clients who had relied on me for years. I had been in the process of handing over my clients to younger employees like Susan. When clients visited the bank, I would sometimes appear to assure them, "Please trust them with your business after my retirement." When Mark ordered my dismissal, I wrote personalized farewell letters to each client, explaining the reason for my departure. I was dismissed for a rational reason, wasn't I? For neglecting my duty of dedication to work. I simply informed the clients of this and apologized.
What? So that's why the clients are all saying they need to reconsider their association with us. You shouldn't have interfered.
The content of my apology for my own negligence doesn't violate any duty of confidentiality or reputation maintenance. Informing them of my retirement and my successors seems only natural. It may sound inappropriate, but I was really pleased that many clients were angered by the unfair treatment I had received. Perhaps they thought someone like me could never violate my duty of dedication to work. It felt like validation for my earnest efforts.
Just come back immediately. You have to take responsibility for this mess.
What are you talking about? You dismissed me a week ago. I'm no longer an employee there. Instead of wasting time on this pointless conversation, why don't you get back to your work?
That dismissal notice was fake. You're still an employee here. consider the past week as paid leave and return to work immediately.
Mark, in his arrogance, was then confessing to document forgery. I was almost speechless at his shameless and hysterical behavior. "You've been quite loud. Isn't it business hours? Aren't you alarming the customers? As a bank employee, shouldn't you refrain from such behavior?" I tried to remain as calm as possible. After a moment of silence, Mark's voice softened.
Please, just come to the bank. I'm begging you.
Later, I visited the bank as requested. In the manager's office, Mark was joined by senior bank executives. Mark looked haggard, a shadow of his former self. He was likely reprimanded by the higher-ups. First, I received apologies from all the senior executives present. Unanimously, they said, "We want you to come back. I appreciate your trust, but I can't work under a manager who casually engages in wrongful dismissal and document forgery."
Understood. So, if the branch manager changes, would that resolve the issue?
Just as I was about to agree, Mark crushed over to me and deeply apologized.
Robert, please, I didn't realize you handled so many major clients. I apologize for my rude behavior. Please don't let me be fired.
Despite his change in attitude, Mark's volume and intensity remained high.
Manager, please a bit quieter. Your voice can be heard from the client area.
As the office door opened, Susan entered with tea, accompanied by one of my longtime major clients, Wilson from Wilson Real Estate.
Robert, Susan always speaks highly of you.
I apologize for the disturbance. He greeted me with a polite nod. He is my longest-serving client and also the father of the bank employee, Susan.
I've heard about the situation from Susan. I'm sorry for what you've been through. This prompted me to rethink where I keep my assets. I'm here to handle some procedures with Susan.
It seemed Wilson was here to close his accounts. It was regrettable to lose such a long-standing client, but it was understandable.
However, I overheard that if the manager changes, you might return. If that's true, I'd be confident in entrusting my assets to you again.
Whether Wilson's words influenced the decision isn't clear, but ultimately, Mark was promptly dismissed. Mark was confronted with a genuine dismissal notice, not a forged one. As far as I was concerned, his future was none of my business. With his banking experience, I thought he wouldn't struggle to find another job, but it turned out not to be so easy. Wilson, a prominent client, had accounts at various banks around the area and, under the guise of casual conversation, spread the word about Mark's actions. Mark became blacklisted in the banking community, being rejected for employment everywhere he went.
A client isn't bound by confidentiality.
Susan casually remarked, echoing your father's words, which I found a bit intimidating. I heard through the grapevine that Mark is now getting by with part-time jobs. I sent greeting cards to my clients, explaining my return to the bank. Even those who had closed their accounts upon my dismissal quickly reopened them when they heard of my comeback. This experience taught me the importance of transitioning responsibilities to others. I'm now actively mentoring the younger employees. They are all eager to learn and take responsibility. It's incredibly fulfilling to still be needed and able to contribute at over 50. With the new goal of nurturing the next generation of bankers, I'm experiencing exciting days, youthful enthusiasm notwithstanding.
High school grads are a disgrace to the company. Cut them off.
Bob, the new CEO, said, laughing and waving his hands as if shooing away a bug. Even though it was his inauguration party, he had removed my seat and told me to sit on a cardboard box. He has always been presumptuous and harassed me. I've had enough of his nonsense. I'm leaving now, I announced and left the venue. About an hour later, I received a call from Bob.
The leading shareholder is looking for you. Just come back immediately.
Imagining someone's angry face at those words, I couldn't help but smile. My name is Mike. I'm just a regular office worker in the general affairs department of a major company. I'm quite timid and often retreat when spoken to harshly.
Mike, you're not in the wrong. You should stand up for yourself more,
said my old friend from school days, Tom. He has always been on my side, always encouraging me to be confident.
I've heard good things about your work from that department.
I'm known in my department for being meticulous in my work. My colleagues are all serious and kind people, and I have friends here, so I'm truly glad I joined this company. Sometimes we go out for drinks, and I have a good rapport with them.
Hey, are you free next weekend? I found the book you wanted to read. How about reading it at my place?
Really? Oh, but I have plans with my grandma this weekend. She's busy, but she said she can make some time then.
Then let's plan for another time. Or you could come over during the week and stay over.
I felt grateful for his cheerful offer. I grew up in a relatively wealthy family. However, my parents were practical people and raised me strictly to prevent me from becoming spoiled. But they were also kind and supported whatever I wanted to do wholeheartedly.
You're a good, serious kid, so you tackle everything with earnestness.
That's why we feel like supporting you.
My parents said, patting my head. They died in an accident when I was in middle school. Since then, I was raised by my maternal grandma.
Mike, I'll be coming home late from work for a while. Will you be okay by yourself?
I'm in middle school, so I'll be fine. My grandma was a busy person and always worried about not being able to attend to me much. Still, she raised me with the same kindness and strictness as my parents. I still respect her and consider her an important part of my family.
How are things going with your girlfriend?
Things are going well. How about you?
I'm doing well, too. We're planning to have dinner together today.
I've been in a relationship for 3 years with a woman named Olivia. She has recently achieved her dream of becoming a lawyer. I met Olivia in a book club for our shared hobby.
The book you're reading. I've been interested in it too.
Yo, it's pretty interesting. A plot is unpredictable, and I always wonder what's going to happen next. I'm about to finish it. Do you want to borrow it?
Really? That'd be great. Let's have a discussion after I read it.
Our shared interest in books led to our dating.
I've always dreamed of becoming a lawyer, like the attorney who helped my mom back in the day.
Her dream was to become a lawyer. So, I supported her from behind the scenes as she focused on the bar exam. While we lived together, I did household chores, provided snacks, and we took breaks together. When she passed, we celebrated together. After completing her legal training and getting her license, Olivia finally landed a job at a law firm.
Let's get married once work settles down.
Of course. We made such promises, and I was living happily. One day, A business partner from France was scheduled to visit.
So, I'd like you to handle the translation.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Being fluent in French, I was appointed as the interpreter. I was to accompany the executive, Bob, as his interpreter. Therefore, I went to greet Bob. I look forward to working with you today.
Mike. Right. Which university did you graduate from?
I had heard that Bob was particular about academic backgrounds. There was no need to hide it, so I was going to answer honestly. I actually graduated high school in the States.
High school. We have someone with just a high school diploma in our company.
My attempt to explain was cut off by Bob's surprised reaction. No, what I meant by high school was,
Isn't there someone with a better educational background to interpret for me? They want to assign a high school grad to me.
Despite trying to explain, Bob completely misunderstood and wouldn't listen to me. That's when my timidity worked against me. Intimidated by Bob's assertiveness, I found myself becoming increasingly silent. Bob, not paying any attention to me, was yelling at those around him. However, it was decided that there was no one more suitable than me, and after some persuasion from others, he reluctantly agreed to have me as the interpreter.
Just make sure you don't do anything embarrassing.
Yes, sir. Then, the client from France arrived, and Bob led the meeting. I must say, I did a perfect translation job. The French client liked me and engaged with me with a smile. I served with all my heart, trying to bring the negotiation to a contract. So, it seems we have no choice but to pass this time. However, we couldn't come to an agreement on the terms, and the deal was postponed. It was an unavoidable situation. No matter who negotiated or translated, it wouldn't have worked.
The failure of the contract is because of this low-educated interpreter.
But Bob blamed it on me being the low-educated interpreter. No matter how much the other employees explained that the numbers just didn't add up, Bob kept scolding me.
If this low-educated idiot had interpreted better, we could have had a contract. This is why high school grads are useless.
Bob's anger was intense, and no one could argue further. After a lot of yelling, Bob left with heavy footsteps.
I heard about it, Mike. You got chewed out by Bob.
Yay, well, you know.
Before complaining about others, he should be thankful you interpreted for him.
And my colleagues immediately supported me. While I appreciated it, I still felt unsettled. I knew he cared about education, but to misunderstand and go on a tirade like that, it's unsettling to have such a person as an executive. It feels like he will pick on me again. I hope this doesn't turn into a big hassle. Thinking about the future, I sighed deeply. And my bad feeling turned out to be right. From then on, Bob became harsher towards me for any reason.
Originally, he was from the General Affairs Department, so that probably makes him dislike you even more.
Being from General Affairs himself, he probably couldn't stand that someone with just a high school diploma like me was in his domain. That was the speculation of Alex, the head of the General Affairs Department. Bob started summoning me for menial tasks and tried to give me work unrelated to general affairs.
Why do we have a high school educated incompetent in our company? Especially in general affairs of all places. We don't need people like that.
And he kept pressuring. indicating there was no place for a high school-educated incompetent. Alex couldn't openly defy Bob and couldn't protect me in public.
Is that from Bob?
Yes.
Then I'll assign that work to someone else. Focus on your tasks here, Mike.
However, Alex took care to distribute my workload in general affairs to others while I was burdened with Bob's tasks, to prevent me from being overworked. Thank you always.
No, don't mention it. I'm sorry, this is all I can do.
No, it's because of Bob, so it can't be helped. I was genuinely grateful for his consideration. But the harassment from Bob only escalated. Sometimes I was unjustly reprimanded, and I received pitying looks from other employees.
Mike, are you okay?
Yo, I'm fine. Alex, the general affairs manager, and everyone in the department are helping me.
I'll help as much as I can too.
I appreciate it, but aren't you busy with sales?
Well, yo.
I thanked Tom, who always looked concerned.
I'll talk to my girlfriend about it too, so you should talk to yours.
Yo, thanks. I wondered why he mentioned his girlfriend, but I nodded anyway. Talking to Olivia, my lawyer girlfriend, might indeed be a good idea. However, I thought she was too busy with her new career, but Olivia noticed something was up.
Mike, did something happen at work?
Why?
You seem lost in thought.
So, I ended up venting about work to her. Olivia listened to me seriously.
For just in case, record that guy Bob's verbal abuse.
But
It's for your own defense. In case of emergency, those recordings will protect you.
convinced by her, I started carrying a voice recorder in my pocket. I continued to receive harassment and verbal abuse from Bob.
How long does this high school incompetent plan to shamelessly stay in this company?
I'm sorry. However, thinking about the voice recorder in my pocket made me feel less pained than before. Knowing I was collecting evidence of his verbal abuse made things easier for me.
Mike, can we talk for a sec?
Sure, but Tom, who is she?
I'm Emma dating Tom.
After Bob left, Tom and his girlfriend approached me. Emma was older than us and seemed to work in administration.
I wanted to ask about Bob.
About Bob.
More precisely, about what he did to you.
We moved to a meeting room to talk. I was confused the whole time.
I understand your confusion, but please tell us.
Tom urged, so I shared the verbal abuse and harassment I faced with her.
You went through all that.
He frowned upon hearing my story. Being in a different apartment, he probably didn't know the details of the harassment. He looked a mix of worried and angry. He really is a caring and good friend.
Thank you for sharing all this with us.
She, lost in thought, greeted me politely. She's very polite. I thought to myself as I responded to her thanks. You're welcome. Emma, who are you exactly? You don't seem like just an administrative worker. She looked momentarily puzzled, but then smiled kindly.
It's a secret for now. I'll tell you everything once it's all settled.
I decided to wait and learn later if she would eventually tell me. It happened shortly after. Bob was appointed the new CEO, and I felt a sense of relief, thinking I would finally be free from his harassment. I figured he'd be too busy as CEO to bother with a regular employee like me, just a bit more patience required. I reassured myself with that thought. But my hopes were swiftly dashed. On the day of the new CEO's inauguration ceremony, Bob, the former executive, now CEO, greeted everyone in front of all the employees. I was supposed to attend the inauguration party for a certain reason. This is it, right? When I went to the seat indicated by the reception, my chair was missing. I confused and checked several times, but it was undoubtedly my seat.
Removed your seat.
Bob arrived and said that. I looked at Bob, who was smirking unpleasantly, in bewilderment. What do you mean?
I was surprised to see your name on the seating chart. How did a high school rat like you sneak into my party?
I never expected to be called a rat at a celebratory event. I was officially invited.
Been your seat, let's see. How about this one?
Bob walked away as if he had an idea. Then came back with a cardboard box from behind a partition and placed it where my seat should be.
A cardboard chair is good enough for the bottom rung.
Bob laughed heartily. That was the last straw for me. Being a CEO doesn't give him the right to do whatever he wants. Do you think this is acceptable?
If you don't like it, leave the company. Now that I'm CEO, there's no place here for high school grads.
Bob shouted back at me as if my retort had hit a nerve. Usually, I would have remained silent, but this time I was too angry and glared back. He looked surprised for a moment, but then he sneered.
High school grads are the company's shame. Cut them off.
Bob gestured dismissively with his hands as if shooing away a bug. Something snapped inside me. I had thought that someday he would see my true value, even with the harassment, but now I didn't care anymore. I'm leaving then. Resigned, I announced and left the venue. Bob, watching me go, laughed and said,
Don't ever show your face around me again.
I left the venue and went into a random shop, where I sat alone, deep in thought. What should I do now? I don't want to work under such a CEO. At that moment, my phone rang. Looking at the time, it had been about an hour since I left the venue. The caller was Bob. Reluctantly, I answered the phone.
Come back here right now.
What are you talking about? I've cut ties with you, so I'm quitting the company. I won't return. I responded calmly to his frantic voice.
The lead shareholder is looking for you. Just come back right now.
He cut the call abruptly, ignoring my words. Such a selfish person. The leading shareholder. She's arrived. The thought of a certain person crossed my mind, and I couldn't help but laugh, imagining her probably fuming with anger. And with that person in mind, I decided to return to the venue.
What on earth is going on here?
Entering the venue, I saw a pale Bob and an elderly woman with white hair standing before him.
What have you done to Mike?
A woman with white hair was shouting furiously at Bob. This woman is my grandma, Harper, and the leading shareholder of our company. I had been invited to the party as my grandma's companion and had arrived early to check the venue. There. For some reason, Emma was standing next to my grandma. Our eyes met, and she gave me a warm smile.
Oh, Mike.
This caught Bob's attention, and he rushed over in a fluster. My grandma also noticed me, giving me a warm look before turning a stern gaze back to Bob.
I didn't know you were associated with the leading shareholder. Please, make amends with Harper.
Bob pleaded with me. Pathetic. I looked towards my approaching grandma.
Mike, what kind of treatment have you been receiving at the company?
I grimaced with a wry smile as my grandma asked angrily. She's always so imposing when angry.
Your seat had a cardboard box on it. Unbelievable.
Easy now. Let's calm down first. Listen to this. I tried to soothe my grandma while pulling out the voice recorder from my pocket. I then shared the various verbal abuses I had endured, played back from the recorder.
How long does this high school dropout plan to shamelessly stay at this company?
The abusive words echoed in the venue, silencing the room.
Harper, please consider this as well.
Then, Emma showed my grandma something on her smartphone screen. It displayed me being berated and burdened with work. When was this filmed? As I pondered quietly, Bob turned deathly pale. Meanwhile, my grandma's anger steadily rose, and reactions varied around the room.
We've been collecting testimonies about his treatment from various departments. We can present that information if needed.
Emma smiled sweetly again. Though it was the same smile as before, there was something about it that seemed to send a chill down my spine.
No, you misunderstand. I thought the job might be too challenging for a high school graduate in this company.
What are you talking about? Mike graduated from a university in France, and he skipped grades too.
My grandma countered Bob's attempt to explain. His eyes widened in shock.
France skipped grades, but he said he was a high school graduate.
Bob was completely flustered and turned to me for confirmation. Even if I graduated from a university in France with advanced placement, in America, they don't recognize it the same way. So, my American education level is high school, but in France, I'm a college graduate. I explained to Bob.
That's impossible.
While he was muttering, I decided to add one more thing. I also entered both my American and French educational backgrounds on my resume when I took the entrance exam for this company. I'm not sure how it was evaluated, but since I passed the exam, I believe the company has accepted my qualifications. After I added this, Bob fell silent.
It's astounding how much undercover harassment you can do to one employee.
My grandma remarked, looking at the cardboard chair placed at my seat. Her anger seemed to have subsided, replaced by a look of disbelief.
That's because I didn't know Mike was your grandson.
Even at this point, Bob was still trying to make excuses. I didn't want to be thought of as someone who got a job because of my grandma's influence. That's why I took the entrance exam quietly and passed on my own. After joining the company, I confided to the then president alone that I was the major shareholder's grandson. I had asked him to keep it quiet from everyone else. I'm not good at standing out or being in the spotlight. That was my wish. The then president respected my wishes and had kept it to himself until now.
If you had known he was my grandson, you wouldn't have acted this way. What a piece of work.
My grandma said sarcastically. At her words, he had nothing to say and just hung his head. After that, the party never really shifted to a celebratory mood for the new CEO and simply continued as a meal event. Bob left the venue alone. Accompanying my grandma, I went around finishing up greetings.
Good work, Mike.
Oh, Emma. After completing the greetings, Emmy approached me. I thank her for gathering the evidence earlier.
It's okay. Tom asked me to do it.
So, Emma, you are.
Actually, I'm related to the former president. I met Harper through my uncle, and now we're friends.
Emma smiled mischievously. It seems she is the niece of the former president. Our company doesn't have a hereditary system. It chooses the next president based on merit. She had no intention of taking over and agreed with that principle. She had accepted Bob becoming the president as the former president stepped down. However, she heard rumors that Bob was harassing me.
At that time, Tom consulted with me about you, Mike.
She had revealed her identity only to Tom. So, he must have asked her if anything could be done about it.
That's why I started looking into things.
Is that so? Tom did?
The more I looked into it, the less I wanted him to inherit the company my uncle cared so much about.
Seeing her smile, I understood why Tom was smitten with her.
I should be going now.
Shall I walk you out?
No, it's fine. Tom is picking me up.
Are you two going on a date? She blushed and nodded. I want to see Olivia. I must fulfill my role as my grandma's companion well. With that in mind, I renewed my resolve as I watched Emma leave, hoping to return to her side as soon as possible. Eventually, Bob was removed from his position as CEO by a shareholders' resolution and stepped down. However, he was appointed as the president of a subsidiary, acknowledging that he had some capabilities. Bob seems to have had a change of heart. He no longer ridicules employees for their education and is managing the company appropriately.
Mike, I think you should claim damages for this.
I don't really care anymore.
But it's about settling the score. You suffered because of Bob. It's important for both you and him to settle this.
Following Olivia's suggestion, I decided to claim damages from Bob. He complied willingly and paid the compensation. I was honestly surprised. I thought he would resist.
Well, if it had been the old me, I definitely would have refused to pay.
Bob had completely changed, showing a more composed demeanor. Curious, I couldn't help but ask why.
In my family, academic achievements were everything. Those with lower education were considered the bottom, and only high-educated individuals had value.
His obsession with academic credentials stemmed from his family's long-standing belief in educational elitism. He mentioned having a younger brother who lives freely, following the motto, "Live doing what you love." Consequently, Bob's parents disregarded this brother.
Thanks to following the family's advice and graduating from a prestigious university, I was able to advance my career. Meanwhile, my brother continues to live freely.
Bob's family praised him, but it was solely because he achieved high academic status, as they demanded, not recognizing it as his own talent.
I knew this, but I always denied it. That denial created a fissure in me, making me constantly irritable and aggressive towards others.
However, following this incident, Bob was disowned by his family. In contrast, his brother, who successfully started his own company, was now being praised.
Seeing all this made me feel foolish.
Bob, on the brink of self-destruction, was admonished by his brother, who had refused to get involved with the family, and his wife, who continued to support him.
That's when I fully woke up. From now on, I want to start over not for my family, but for myself, the company, and my loved ones.
I felt a newfound respect for Bob. I'm sure he'll be all right from now on.
As for the damages, I was wondering how I could make it up to you. So, your claim actually helped me.
Olivia's words impressed me internally. I continued working as usual afterward. Due to the incident with my grandma and Bob, it became known at the company that I was the major shareholder's grandson. But I am separate from my grandma. Please treat me as usual, without any special treatment. I requested my colleagues not to give me any preferential treatment. They understood my wish and interacted with me as they always had. I felt grateful to my colleagues and became even more dedicated to my work. Tom consulting Emma really helped gather a lot of evidence.
That's good to hear.
Grateful to Tom for his help, I decided to treat him to a meal as a thank you. Tom has always treated me the same, regardless of my family's wealth, which I truly appreciate.
You say that, but I'm also grateful to you.
Really? Tom and I became close in high school after he reached out to me. It all started when he approached me.
When I was about to give up in club activities, you supported me, and that made me want to try a little harder.
At that time, Tom was about to quit the club because he couldn't keep up. That's when I remembered how my parents supported me and encouraged him. Just try a little longer. As a result, he outperformed everyone else and overcame his inferiority complex.
Everyone else had given up, but you were the only one who supported me. That's why I decided to always be there for you too.
Tom said with a laugh. I was moved by his words and had to fight back tears. Quickly changing the subject to small talk to hide my emotions. Tom and I ending up at the same company was a complete coincidence. He's head over heels for Emma, and he fell even more for her after seeing her dignified presence at the party. We shared various stories and had a great time.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Olivia. Olivia was waiting at home with a smile.
You look really happy.
Do I? Maybe because I had fun.
That's good. You seem to be pondering a lot recently.
Thanks. When I thanked Olivia, she giggled and asked,
About what?
Looking at her, I felt a strong desire to protect her smile. Later, Olivia's work finally settled down. So, will you marry me?
Yes, I'd love to.
And so we decided to get married. Considering my preference to avoid the limelight, Olivia suggested a small ceremony with only family and close friends. Thank you. But are you sure it's okay?
It's fine. I'm not interested in a lavish wedding. It has to be something we both truly enjoy.
I grew to love her even more when she said that with a smile. I decided to invite my grandma, Tom, and Emma. Since Olivia only invited her family, it was a small wedding. However, it turned out to be a very warm ceremony.
Mike and Olivia, I wish you both happiness.
Actually, we're also planning to get married within the year.
That's great. They blessed us. Then I promised to sincerely celebrate their moment. Meanwhile, my grandma, seeing me in my finest, greeted Olivia with tears of joy.
Please take care of him.
Yes, I will make sure we're happy together.
I'm counting on you. Both of you have worked hard and faced many challenges, right? So I want you two to be very happy.
For my grandma, who had always watched over me, I resolved to build a happy family with Olivia. Eventually, I will inherit my grandma's fortune. But with Olivia being a lawyer, I feel very reassured. Well, that's a concern for the distant future. First, we need to have a child for my grandma to hold. For Olivia and our future family, I need to strengthen my mental resilience.
I'm rooting for you, Mike.
For my precious family, I will strive harder from now on, while ensuring I never look down on or ridicule anyone.
Just by being here, you make our wedding look miserable.
Said the bride to me, a high school grad invited to the wedding of a friend who had made it big. It was my first time attending such a fancy and formal event, and I was a bit nervous. Told me, the bride spewed insults.
Low-educated trash should cut ties with my husband, okay?
What? Really? It was you who said we should cut ties. Whatever happens, it's not my concern. She, who can only superficially judge people by their education or titles, had no idea who I really was, a high school grad. My name is John Roberts. Just an unremarkable pianist. I love meeting new people and traveling around the world. On the side, I play my piano at jazz bars and restaurants around town. Sometimes, I would play the public piano on street. By doing so, I earn some change and live day by day. I'm hesitant to say this myself, but I was raised in a relatively affluent family. The piano, which has now become my livelihood, was something I was forced to learn from the age of 3 growing up in the affluent household. In competitions I joined alongside adults, I frequently won awards and was called a prodigy or a wunderkind. That now feels quite embarrassing. However, that lifestyle collapsed when I was in elementary school. My father's business failed, and we ended up living in a small apartment in the countryside. Because it was a townhouse, playing the piano at home was not allowed, both emotionally and by rules. Yet, I couldn't give up and would go to the school's music room after class to practice diligently. One day, after I finished playing a piece, I suddenly heard applause. Looking towards the sound, there was a boy standing alone, his face looking like he was about to cry, moved by the music.
Well, that was Chopin's Puppy Waltz, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Amazing, amazing. What else can you play?
Well, like this.
When I played Schumann's Traumerei, his eyes lit up even more.
Really amazing. How long have you been playing piano?
Since I was 3. At first, I was forced to, but then I started to like it.
Do you play at home too?
No, I live in an apartment, so I can't play there. That's why I'm here every day.
Hearing that, he went like, whoa. He apparently was impressed by my emotion toward playing the piano.
I'm Tom Brown. Can I come listen again tomorrow?
Of course. I'm John Roberts. I play almost every day, so come by if you have time.
I shook hands with Tom firmly. From that day on, my solo performances had an audience. Over time, we grew closer. His father worked in the treasury, and he was the son of a wealthy family.
Do you play any instruments, Tom?
Well, a bit of violin.
That's cool. Violin seems tough.
Yeah, it's hard. That's why I'm not really good at it. My mom keeps getting mad at me for not being able to play.
Tom looked a bit sad as he said this.
But
saying it, his expression instantly changed. He lit up like a completely different person.
It was your piano that moved me.
He leaned in close, saying with great fervor, I was truly happy that my piano could move him, but I never expected it to this extent.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
Let's play together next time. My piano and your violin.
When I suggested a session, his face darkened a bit.
I'll consider it when my violin is up to par with your piano.
I see. Then, let's practice together for the next 3 years of middle school.
Yeah?
Tom hesitated a bit in his response. At that time, I didn't think much of it, but just a few days later, I learned what he meant directly from him.
What? You're taking exams for a middle school far away.
Yeah, so it looks like we won't be able to practice together. Sorry?
I see. But you have your dreams, Tom, so it can't be helped.
Dreams? Huh? Actually, my dream has. Never mind.
Tom started to say something, but then stopped himself. Respecting his feelings, I didn't ask any further. Instead, I extended my pinky finger.
Promise, no matter how late, let's play together for sure.
Yay!
Tom also extended his pinky finger. We made a pinky promise and solemnly swore on our future session.
I'll write you letters, Tom.
I can't speak for Tom, but being broke, I don't have a cell phone or anything, and I can't afford to waste money on a home phone. That's why I decided to use letters, a relatively inexpensive way to communicate.
Yeah, I'll be waiting.
As best friends took different paths, I went on to a local public middle school. I didn't join any clubs and spent my afternoons playing the piano in the music room. I was determined not to be left behind by Tom. He would surely return leveled up. My ambition to improve my performance was blazing, but contrary to my inner turmoil and the external temperature, an event that occurred in the summer in my 9th grade was utterly cold.
Dad.
While my mom and I watched, my dad was being examined in a hospital bed. We had rushed over after getting a call from his workplace that he had collapsed during work. He barely responded to our calls, extremely weak. It was hard to tell if he had any strength at all.
He'll need to be hospitalized for a while to observe,
the doctor said, and our anxiety only grew. Trying to distract myself from those feelings, I threw myself even more into playing the piano. Desperately, I continued to strike the piano keys, mastering Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain. I was practicing. The inner anxiety and the horror vibe of the piece matched, and I was oddly drawn to it. Especially that day, I was so engrossed that I completely forgot I was in the school's music room. I didn't even notice that an audience had come to my solo concert.
Amazing. John, you're really good at piano.
There were several girls from my class. The sound of their clapping echoed in the music room. Having thought I was alone, I had exaggeratedly moved to the rhythm and made odd movements. Embarrassed, I replied with a curt thanks. I felt like I was trying too hard, and my embarrassment grew. I'm worried that it might show on my face.
Do you always play here?
Yeah, almost every day.
Normally, keeping to myself in the class and living quietly. These after-school performances were my only solace.
Wow, that's great. Can I come listen again tomorrow?
Hearing that reminded me of the first time I met Tom. Looking back, our meeting was also thanks to the piano. The black and white keys had brought such a person into my life.
Of course.
Feeling incredibly happy, I answered while almost crying. But then, what's this? Is the poor kid getting cocky? My archenemy appeared. Amy Anderson, a classmate, ridiculed me for being pool. Her entourage of 3 joined in, making a racket almost every day.
Why is someone like you, even at this school, having a fallen poo person around really brings down the mood, doesn't it?
Amy laughed barbarically. The girls, who had been enjoying my piano, were now completely intimidated.
Who's really bringing down the mood here?
I thought so, but unfortunately, I didn't have the courage to say it out loud.
Sorry,
I muttered, overwhelmed by their words, and left the music room. I wiped away my tears with the sleeve of my shirt and ran home, as if fleeing from the scene. Despite that, I continued to play the piano every day. Even as Amy and her friends dampened my spirit, I couldn't give up. With that single-minded determination, no matter how much they interfered or insulted me, I kept hitting the piano keys. However, I was aware that my piano playing had changed. Huff, huff. Breathless from playing so intensely. Sweat soaked through my body.
You were amazing today, too.
Yay, thanks.
Though the audience praised me, I couldn't take their words to heart. At some point, the reason I played the piano was no longer because I love it. It had become a means to release the distortion in my heart, compressed by a terrifying presence. In essence, it had degraded into an escape from reality. I knew this wasn't right, but this was the only way I knew to clear my dreadful feelings.
Here he goes again. Can't you read the room at all?
As my mood plummeted, Amy's taunts only got worse. Days like these continued, and I eventually stopped going to school. I wanted to play the piano. To play, I had to go to school. But going to school meant facing insults. Caught in this nightmarish triangle, a further despair struck me.
Oh, my dear.
My father, now cold and covered with a cloth. My mother was crying, clinging to his right arm.
Dad.
Strangely, I didn't cry. Instead, I felt an odd sense of frustration. The last time my father heard me play was when I was very young. I never had the chance to show him how much I'd improved because I just kept playing at school and didn't participate in any competitions. I had gotten so much better. I was on a different level than before. Despite all the words I had lined up, I never got the chance to let him hear. That was unbearably frustrating. After my father passed away, my mother and I moved in with her parents. Right after graduating high school, we left for Japan. My mother's father, that is, my grandfather, was half Japanese and lived there. My mother, a quarter American, is named Ellie Roberts.
Hey, welcome back, John.
Hi, thank you for your warm welcome, Grandpa.
One night, when I got home, I ran into Grandpa in the living room. He was watching TV while petting the dog.
Were you at that jazz bar again today?
Yeah.
Since coming to Japan, I hadn't attended any educational institutions. I'd been touring nearby bars, showcasing my piano playing. I lived off the tips I received, managing to get by without depending too much on my grandparents. Time passed, and the self-proclaimed pianist, John Roberts, reached his 30s, now back from Japan and settled in the US. Somehow missing my hometown, I rented a room in the same apartment I used to live in and started living alone. Even though I was settled, I traveled the world whenever I had the chance. I meet different people wherever I go, share values, and update myself. It's really cool to feel like I'm evolving each time. It's quite fascinating. Though confident in my performance, seeing the world made me realize I still had much to learn. When I played piano on the street in Germany, a lanky man casually began to play Schubert's Rocking, leaving me speechless. In a French tavern, while playing Ravel's Judo, a girl who looked to be in her teens proposed a piano duet. It's going to be a good experience for me, who had always played solo. I thought that way and agreed, and I was amazed by how incredible the girl was. Far from just matching my pace, she actually led. Our first duet was a resounding success, electrifying the audience. Continuously honed by the world, I leveled up as a pianist. Despite the challenges, I cherished the freedom to elevate myself. This time, I went to Austria. After finishing my trip, I returned home, lugging my heavy bags back to my apartment from the airport. Well, there's a pile here. Checking the mailbox, I found it stuffed with letters and various mail. I had told the landlord I was going on an international trip, so there was no need for worry. There was a time I forgot to inform and went abroad. The accumulation of mail had led neighbors to worry something had happened, resulting in a police report and a scolding from the landlord upon my return. Now, what news do I have this time? After bringing my luggage inside, I went through the mail. Most were utility bills or flyers from nearby supermarkets. Well, what's this? One envelope stood out, extravagant and ornate. Wedding invitation. Someone's getting married. Turning it over, I saw the sender's name in Japanese letters. Tom Brown and Amy. So, Tom's getting married. Seeing my old friend's name after so long excited me. We had talked about writing letters, but I hadn't sent any since that summer in 9th grade. It's been over 10 years, but it seems he hasn't forgotten me. I pulled out the invitation hour of the envelope. It was folded in half with a section for RSVP. Of course, I'll attend. I grabbed a pen to mark "will attend" and added "with pleasure" above it and crossed out "decline." Then I filled in my address, name, and a message of congratulations. 11 p.m. Guess I'll send the RSVP and call tomorrow. After closing the folded invitation, I noticed handwritten messages from Tom and his wife. Tom has had strong handwriting since elementary school, and it seems nothing has changed. Right below, there was a message written in the same distinctive slanted font. I chuckled at the two and decided to call it a night. Jet lag was a bit rough, but fatigue easily outweighed it. On the day of the wedding, arriving at the designated place, it turned out to be an extremely famous luxury hotel. It was my first time attending such a lavish and formal wedding, and I was a bit nervous.
Hey, long time no see, John.
While I was looking for my seat, a voice called out from behind. "Oh, Tom, congratulations on your wedding."
Thanks, glad you could make it.
It had been about 15 years since we last saw each other. Without resorting to complicated words, we celebrated our reunion with a firm handshake. Standing next to him was the bride, who seemed surprised to see me. "Heard you became a bank president."
Yeah, thankfully.
"That's amazing."
Thanks. What about you? You were in Japan for a while, right?
"Yeah, right after graduating from high school. Since then, I've just been doing my own thing without pursuing further studies."
I see.
As we talked about each other's lives, a voice called Tom from a distance.
Oops, sorry.
Tom looked over and gestured with his right hand as if to say, "I'll be back." And he hurried off to greet another acquaintance. However, for some reason, the bride stayed behind, still looking at me.
John Roberts, as in the John Roberts, the one who used to play the piano in the music room every day?
Oh, yeah, that's me.
You're a high school grad.
The characteristic rise at the end of her sentences. The choice of words mocking me. And then, the name Amy on the invitation. I had suspected, but the bride, Amy, was that same Amy who always bullied me in middle school. Here we are, over 10 years later, meeting again.
Just vibing here. You make our wedding look miserable.
Is that so? Sorry about that. Wow, you actually feel bad? Well, nothing to be done now since you're here. But from here on out. Said so, her face at that moment seemed even more malicious than I remembered.
Low-educated trash should cut ties with my husband, okay?
Though I've grown since then, I was still pretty upset at the idea of cutting ties with Tom. Unable to stay calm like before, I retorted a bit. "Tom and I have been best friends since elementary school. Do you have the right to sever that bond?"
Of course I do. I'm his wife.
Her logic was baffling. Just then, Tom thankfully returned. "Sorry, Tom. I'm withdrawing all my money from the bank and closing that account."
Why? It's a joke, right?
While Tom was shocked, the bride was speechless. She probably confused by what I was saying. "No, your wife told me the poor high school grad should cut ties with her husband."
What? Amy, what's going on?
But, I mean, because...
Flustered by Tom's questioning, she continued,
Having a fallen poo person around just ruins the atmosphere. It's bad for your job too, right?
She screamed hysterically, not caring about the onlookers.
Hey, why would you invite such a poor person to our wedding?
Amy, that's too much. Apologize to John.
No, I'm not wrong.
Sorry, seems I've caused a disturbance at your wedding. I turned my back on them and headed towards the exit.
John, wait please. John?
Tom grabbed my arm after walking several feet. He desperately pleaded to be allowed to explain. I wasn't angry with Tom, so I decided to go back with him.
Sorry, John?
Don't apologize, Tom. It's me who should be sorry. I got too emotional. Meanwhile, the bride stood with her arms crossed, looking away.
Amy, listen to me about how John and I met.
When Tom said that, she only turned her gaze towards him.
It's a story from when we were still in elementary school.
He started to recount our story from 15 years ago, as if it happened just yesterday.
My parents were strict bureaucrats at the Treasury. There were so many restrictions on what I could or couldn't do. It left me without much in common with my classmates, making it hard to fit in.
Conversely, he was somewhat forced to play the violin. It was much like my situation with the piano, starting even before elementary school.
I hated those days so much. Coming home meant more strict supervision, more studying, and more practice playing. To escape, I'd wander aimlessly around the school after hours.
This was around when we were in the 6th grade. It was the same time when my dad's business failed and I could no longer play the piano at home. The bride eventually uncrossed her arms and listened intently to Tom's story.
It was one day, as I passed by the music room, I heard the puppy waltz coming from inside.
Tom was curious about who was playing. To him, it sounded beyond the level of any elementary student, even surpassing the music teachers.
When I entered the music room, it was an elementary student playing. I was astonished. Sure, it's a piece that's accessible for children, but it wasn't just good, it struck a chord in me. You could tell the pianist was thoroughly enjoying playing from the bottom of his heart.
The bride's eyes had turned slightly red.
That was the day I met you, John. Your playing healed my almost broken spirit.
It seemed Tom saw my playing as one of the few solaces from the pressures of his parents. That's why he kept coming to the music room every day after that.
Seeing you enjoy playing so much made me start to enjoy playing the violin. My dreaded days were completely transformed.
That's why he became positive about middle school exams and successfully passed them. Although it was a bit lonely to part ways with Tom for school, knowing my playing had been a foundation for him made me proud and happy. I had been praised for being good before, but I hadn't thought I had saved anyone. Hearing Tom's story, the bride, Amy, had tears in her eyes. The underestimated high school grad had laid the foundation for her husband's character. Whether it was regret or gratitude for her, I couldn't tell.
Amy, you said it too, right? In middle school, when you were struggling, the piano you heard soothed your heart?
Yeah?
Surprised by the story, I looked at Amy with wide eyes.
Don't look at me.
She blushed and seemed embarrassed.
Maybe it's because we shared similar experiences that we got along so well.
Traveling the world, I've witnessed various coincidences, but such a miraculous connection was quite rare. I can't believe I unwittingly played matchmaker.
John?
Tom, looking a bit guilty, questioned me. He didn't know yet. Actually, Tom,
What is it?
I was surprised too, coming to the venue. Your wife, she's my middle school classmate.
What?
Tom's surprise was understandable. Faced with this astonishing fact, the three of us could only laugh. After we finished laughing, Amy started apologizing to me head down. Her hair, probably set for the wedding, drooped towards the ground.
I'm sorry. I said terrible things without knowing anything.
Wait a minute.
Amy.
Tom looked at her admiringly, but for me, it was an emergency. It would be a disaster if the rumor spread that a guest made the bride, the main heroine, apologize at her own wedding.
It's not just that. I want to apologize for middle school too. After you stopped coming to school, I regretted it. I went to your house to apologize, but you had already moved away.
All right, just face forward for me, please. Amy turned to face me again, her makeup smidged by tears. She might need to touch up her makeup a bit sooner.
I know it sounds like an excuse, but my family was really strict.
Listening to her, it seemed her family was also very strict. That led her to take out her stress on me. Her recent outburst, too, was due to the values instilled in her by her parents, who cared only about academic background. Indeed, she graduated from a prestigious university and works at a top-tier company.
So, I'm really sorry.
Again, Amy apologized to me. Let's forget about the past. Just make Tom, my best friend, happy. After receiving apologies from both of them, I was so relieved that I momentarily forgot what I was angry about. All the poison drained away. Then, the wedding planner approached us. It was time to start. I apologized to Amy and suggested she go touch up her makeup. And Tom, leave that matter to me.
Sure, thanks.
I gave my best friend a thumbs up and took my seat. The wedding proceeded smoothly, and after the bride's outfit change, it was time for the entertainment. The relatives performed a splendid traditional country line dancing. After that, it was my turn to execute that matter. Guided to a dim backstage area, I found a piano waiting for me.
Next up for our entertainment, we have a performance by the genius pianist, Mr. John Roberts, a close friend of the groom, Tom.
After the grand introduction, the spotlight shone on me. I played Les Liebestraum. I had always thought of playing it at someone's wedding someday. I never imagined the first time would be at my best friend, Tom's wedding. The tension was different from any competition, jazz bar, or street performance. It felt like the first piece ended in a blink. After a brief pause, I placed my hands on the keys again. Simultaneously, Tom stood up. It was a plan only the planner and the two of us knew about. As everyone looked on in surprise, the groom took up a violin hidden under the table. We matched our timing through eye contact and started the second piece, Elgar's Salutdammer. As I played, memories of my travels flashed through my mind. Japan, England, Germany, France, Spain, and Austria. The list of memories was endless. The lanky man who appeared out of nowhere. The unfamiliar young girl. Even after numerous duets with many people, today's performance with Tom moved me to my core. The duet with Tom was more amazing than anything in my memory. The sound matched perfectly, accentuating each other's nuances. The joy in Tom's violin playing was palpable. As I played, I felt tears welling up. The audience, including the bride, was moved to tears. What a perfect performance! A 15-year-old oral agreement. The duet between pianist John Roberts and violinist Tom Brown had finally come to fruition here and now. As the last note and its reverberation faded, applause filled the venue. When the applause subsided, Tom took the microphone.
John and I have been best friends since elementary school. Both of us played instruments back then. However, I was not a performer who could match the genius pianist John Roberts. There was a time he asked for a duet, but I felt I wasn't up to par and had put it on hold until now.
Back then, Tom didn't enjoy playing the violin. Contrastingly, I always loved playing the piano. Perhaps he felt the gap.
I'm very happy we could accomplish this duet today.
The venue erupted into cheers and applause once more.
Actually, this was supposed to be the end of my speech. But let me introduce him, John Roberts.
Tom began to speak impromptu, not part of the plan.
He is John Roberts, my best friend. As I mentioned earlier, he is a genius pianist. He posts his performances on YouTube, and he's a big deal with over 1 million subscribers. I encourage everyone to check out his YouTube channel.
As Tom explained, my YouTube channel, thankfully, has been viewed by many. I post single performance videos as well as performances from abroad. Additionally, I've recently started composing, receiving numerous requests. Some of my works have become global hits. It's somewhat vulgar to mention, but the account I opened at Tom's bank holds about $80 million. Yet, I'm not living a luxurious lifestyle, but I'm living comfortably on my own terms. I plan to continue traveling to various countries.
Please give him a big round of applause.
At Tom's request, all eyes and applause in the venue were directed at me. Without jumping for joy, I simply acknowledged the audience with a nod and a smile, as befits a pianist. Since the summer in my 9th grade, anonymous letters started appearing in my desk and shoe locker. The message was simple, warning me to watch out because the delinquents are after me for extortion or worse. It was a warning to watch out for muggings and even worse acts. The letters were tip-offs from someone, written in a distinctive slanted font. Amy Anderson started visiting the music room. Around that time, I had always wondered about something. Despite bullying me daily, she never interrupted my performances. She always arrived after I finished a piece and the audience had enjoyed the afterglow. It seemed she listened to my playing before hastily sending me home. If that was the case, she was likely the author of the letters. Thinking back, the handwriting matched that on the wedding invitation. I tried contacting Amy several times to confirm, but she stubbornly pretended not to know. I figured it wouldn't be good to push too hard, so I just kept that to myself and silently appreciated it. As the wedding ended and guests began to leave, while the parents are exchanging greetings, children, who had become bored, came to me.
The piano was amazing.
Hey, thanks,
Play that one.
they requested, referring to the theme song of some popular anime. I played the chorus, and they were thrilled. One request led to another, from the pretended family spy anime to the sorcerer battle anime, causing quite the commotion. Eventually, things settled down, and the newlyweds came over.
John, thank you so much for today.
The pleasure was mine.
By the way, about that account closing, are you sure?
As Tom said, Amy looked at me apologetically. No way. I wouldn't do that. Got a bit emotional and said something silly. My bad.
That's a relief.
Tom said with a relieved expression. About that money,
Yeah.
I want to use those $8 million to set up a music school. Not a formal academy, but a place to give people the opportunity to engage with music. I want to ensure no one has to give up due to financial reasons. As I shared my dream, they both agreed to help me. It seemed they resonated with my view on music and willing to help with the setup and operation. A few days after the wedding, Tom contacted me.
Thanks for last time. I found out today that Amy is pregnant. Maybe that's why she was emotionally unstable then. Please forgive her.
While preparing for my next trip, I replied, "Congratulations. It's deeply moving to see my best friend become a father. I'm not bothered by that incident, don't worry. More importantly, I hope you'll check out the video I'm posting today." That night, a video titled "To My Dear Friends" was uploaded to my channel. It was a medley of Liebestraum and Salutdammer, the pieces I played at the wedding. It also served as a reminder for me to keep the emotions of that day vivid. I had thought about posting our duet, but that legendary performance has become a treasure I prefer to keep in my heart. A person's essence can't be judged solely by academic credentials or superficial words. I may be a high school grad with no formal education, but I consider myself a successful individual. The same goes for Amy. If you only look at her actions towards me in middle school, she indeed seems terrible. However, whether she was the one who sent those anonymous letters or made sure I got home before falling victim to delinquents, her awkward methods showed she's genuinely kind-hearted. My ability to recognize what truly matters came from interacting with many people worldwide. Some countries I visited couldn't exactly boast about their educational systems. But that doesn't mean everyone from those places is unpleasant. The essence lies much deeper. The essence boils down to what people believe and think about.
Got some nerve. Pressing the main contractor is just a subcontractor, huh?
That's what I was told by Jeff, the main contractor's department head. His words threw me off. He even called me lowly guy because I only graduated high school. I was seriously thinking about changing my assignment after this project. I had taken on a $70 million project from Jeff, putting in my all, but it fell through. Maybe I wasn't skilled enough. His words, "I'm eating now. Wait till tonight, lowly guy." That seemed to hide the real reason for the failure. My name is Harry Turner. Right after high school, I joined Franklin Industries. I lost my father early and was raised by my mother alone. I had a younger sister and brother, so I chose to work instead of going to college to ease my mother's burden. She strongly pushed me towards college, but I kept saying no. I told her I preferred working over studying. Every time I saw my mother for a few days, she'd say, "Go to college." But I was set on working instead of going to college. Finally, she gave in and suggested a job at Franklin Industries, where I now work in sales. I was assigned to the sales department and worked hard to become competent, learning from my bosses and reading lots of self-help books at home. 10 years passed. I was now working with Rachel, who was my trainer, and about to retire to get married.
We're at Johnson Motors today, a world-class company. Steve, their rep, is a veteran who taught me everything about sales. It's your turn now, Harry.
Rachel was a top salesperson. Since she was retiring, I took over some of her clients. Today, I accompanied her. We arrived at Johnson Motors and went to the conference room.
Congratulations on your marriage, Rachel. At first, I thought Franklin Industries was mocking us, sending a strange young girl fresh out of college to handle our account. Just joking, you know. You turned out to be an incredibly hard worker, and I think we've had a great partnership. Today, I'm as happy as if I were your parents.
The client said, and the meeting was friendly throughout.
I'm looking forward to working with you, Harry. So, we have a request for you.
I listened carefully, with Rachel's help, and discussed the details. I'll take this back to the office and get back to you early next week.
Great. Are you gonna still be around, Rachel?
I'll be here until the 31st this month, so let me know if you need anything.
I immediately started working on the request from Johnson Motors, going through departments, making documents, having Rachel check them, getting my supervisor's approval, and then setting up a meeting with Steve.
Hey, who lied to me? I heard the new rep was a stunning beauty in good shape. But it's a guy, and so young. Are they mocking us? Remember their place, subcontractor.
The guy who appeared in the meeting room was a sight. He had a water bottle in one hand and was wearing a flashy shirt with visible tattoos peeking out from the sleeves. He had long blonde hair and looked about my age.
I'm Jeff. Starting today, I'm supposed to be your contact, but I'm declining, so that's that.
He said, then left the room. I was completely clueless about what had just happened. After waiting around for about 10 minutes, the guy who called himself Johnson came back.
You didn't leave. Huck, impressive. I was thinking of canceling the deal if you had gone. Too bad. The old man must have asked you for something. Show me. Explain it. Quick.
While getting ready and feeling a bit thrown off, I asked him a question that was on my mind. What about Steve, our usual contact?
He was useless, so I sent him to handle the warehouse. Heard he threw out his back in 3 days and is now in the hospital. Useless, right?
I started explaining the proposal with as much calm as I could muster.
So, how much is it going to cost, and when can you deliver?
As I mentioned on the last page of the proposal.
Oh, $10,000 for 2 weeks, right?
No, it's $100,000 for 2 weeks.
That's pricey. A tenfold increase just because you're a subcontractor.
I chose to stay silent.
I like that look on your face. Let's go with this. You've got contracts to sign and all, right? I'll get it done, so come pick it up tomorrow.
Somehow, amidst the chaos, it seemed like I had managed to seal the deal. The next day, I was at Johnson Motors to pick up the contract from Jeff, the department head.
Wow, you're early. The contract is ready, so take it back with you.
Thank you. We'll get started on the work right away.
What? You haven't started yet? I could have canceled it, you know. I like that look. I love your reaction. See ya.
I was really thrown off. As I was leaving the meeting room, someone spoke to me from behind. It was Steve on crutches. Are you okay? I heard about you from Jeff.
Yo, got hurt doing some heavy lifting I'm not used to.
We chatted for a bit and then parted ways. A few days later, while working at my desk in the afternoon, I got an internal call from a colleague in another department. They informed me that the payment from Johnson Motors hadn't come through yet. Normally, it wouldn't be this late, so they contacted me, the person in charge. I confirmed the late payment and called Jeff at Johnson Motors.
Got some nerve, calling the main contractor as a subcontractor. But don't worry, I just went on a little vacation, and that's why the processing got delayed. You can wait a couple of days, right? Being a subcontractor and all.
He said this unilaterally and hung up. I wondered if contractors really cared about who was in charge between main and subcontractors. I thought you should have done it before your vacation, but didn't say it. After the call, it still took 4 more days to confirm the payment. Just as I was about to make another call, the phone rang.
Harry, you have a call. It's Jeff from Johnson Motors.
Jeff was on the line.
I just finished the procedure. You should be grateful I'm calling to tell a subcontractor personally.
Thank you. Similar payment delays happened several times after this incident. Jeff's words always had a bit of an edge, but I kept my cool.
You're always so cool, aren't you? Here's a big opportunity. Did you know that next year, new safety standards are coming in, and cars won't pass inspection without this new part?
Yes, I heard it's a small part requiring advanced manufacturing techniques.
Good. That is subcontractor. Always up to date. So, here's the thing. We're looking for companies to manufacture this part. I've entered your company in the running. It's a deal worth over $70 million. You're in, right? We'll have a detailed briefing tomorrow at exactly 1 p.m. in the large conference room on the 3rd floor of Johnson Motors headquarters. If you're a subcontractor and interested, gather up or, better yet, just come.
Jeff said we should come to the meeting. What should we do? I had just reported to my supervisor about this huge deal that Jeff mentioned.
Right now, we need the parts specifications. Gotta hear what the guys on the floor have to say too. Let's take our engineer with us tomorrow.
The next day at 12:40 p.m., the engineer and I were escorted to the 3rd floor conference room at Johnson Motors headquarters. It is indeed the headquarters of the company. Just the corridor we walked through had 3 conference rooms. We were seated, and 10 minutes before the meeting, nobody else had arrived. Then, the conference room door opened. Expecting another company, I was surprised to see Mr. Johnson and several men in work clothes enter.
Okay, let's get started. Today, our field technicians will give the explanation. I'm handing out 3 copies of the same document, so share with the person next to you. You guys, explain it clearly to this subcontractor. Dumb as a monkey. It's a gracious explanation from the main contractor, so listen up, subcontractors.
Are no other companies coming? The answer was straightforward.
Who else but your company can make this as a subcontractor? We didn't invite anyone else. Don't get too cocky just because the main contractor spoke to you.
My technician colleague and I listened to 2 Johnson Motors technicians and a specialist for about 2 hours.
Can you make it, being just a subcontractor?
It seems feasible from our technician's perspective, but we have a few questions.
Ask away.
We ask several questions.
Anything else you want to ask? Are we done with this meeting, subcontractors?
Thank you. We've got a good idea now. We'll take this back and discuss it.
It's a $70 million annual deal, remember. Don't come back saying you can't do it, even if you're just a subcontractor.
Back at the office, we had a meeting as planned with all department heads.
To make this, we'll need to use a patent technology we acquired before. We haven't agreed on usage rights with Johnson Motors, so we need their signature. But we can make a prototype in 4 days. Easier than I thought.
The next day, I called Jeff to make an appointment and visited him.
What? You're here to say no to the $70 million deal, subcontractor?
I had come to Johnson Motors' meeting room with our technician. It was a challenging request, but our technicians managed to make it happen.
You've got a sample. Let's see it.
We handed the sample to Johnson Motors' technical department head. He started measuring it from every angle.
Size and shape are perfect. Let me do a function check.
We'd like our technician to observe, if possible.
Take them with you. Go ahead and do the check. Feel free in the room.
Our technician went with their head of technical department to do the field verification.
If the sample works, we'll proceed as planned. The price and delivery date.
That depends on the sample, but that's the intention.
Right. But they're taking too long, aren't they?
The technical department of Johnson Motors. Soon, Johnson Motors' technical department head and our technician returned.
The sample's good, even for a subcontractor, so we'll proceed as planned.
Thank you. However, to manufacture this product, we need to use a patented technology. We need a signature by 8 p.m. in 3 days to proceed as planned.
3 days. Just sign it, right? I can do that. Should I write Dear Harry? Just kidding. You need the company seal too. Can't do it now. Let's handle it later.
Please make sure it's done.
Don't get ahead of yourself, subcontractor. Didn't they teach you manners in college?
I wouldn't know. I didn't go to college.
What? A lowlife? Is that why you're acting like this? By the way, there are no lowlifes at Johnson Motors. That's why you could only get into subcontracting.
I seriously thought about changing my assignment after this was over. I've been calling every day since for the documents.
Busy yesterday. I'll do it tomorrow.
When I visited the next day,
Mr. Johnson is off today.
Soon, it was the last day, the 30th.
He stepped out right now.
Can you get a hold of Mr. Johnson? It's urgent.
Please wait a moment.
I was seriously worried. It was almost 7 p.m.
From Jeff, the department head. Here you go.
Are the documents ready?
What? I'm meeting right now. Just ordered, so I'll be back in 2 hours after I finish. I'll come back for the subcontractor, even though I don't really have to.
but the deadline is in an hour.
Extend it. I was off yesterday, so consider this additional time. Maybe stoppage time is an easier concept for you, lolly guy.
There's no such thing.
I'm eating now, so wait till tonight, lolly guy.
Is that really okay?
What?
Couldn't get the documents from Johnson Motors. Yes, understood. I'll do as instructed. It was my fault. I apologize. Thank you for saying so. I'll head back to the office now. It was 10 minutes past 8 p.m. on the 30th when I called my superior, George, at the office. It seemed the president, Edward, was there too. When I got back, both George and Edward approached me.
Let's wrap this up once and for all.
I emailed Jeff. I also spent the rest of the time drafting a closure report for the project to various stakeholders. Frankly, I was dreading tomorrow. How many places would I have to bow my head in apology? Northfield Metalworking, you had just informed me that they were gearing up for production, was one of them. At 9 p.m., as I was getting ready to leave, a call came in.
What's going on? It's a $70 million deal. You won't get such a big project as a subcontractor again. Come over now. The documents are ready. You can fudge the time, can't you?
Thank you for calling, but please don't be unreasonable. Time can't be fudged. The deadline for submitting these documents to another party was 9 p.m. It's too late now. A project this big is once in a lifetime for a small subcontractor like us. But we've decided to drop this big project. It's an order from the president. We're regretting that such a project wasn't suitable for someone with just a high school diploma like me.
What do you mean canceling the contract now? I'll sue you. What am I supposed to tell the main contractor? This is cutting-edge technology. It's about confidentiality.
We haven't signed the main contract yet. Couldn't get the documents from you. Maybe tell the main contractor that you couldn't sign the contract because you were eating. I don't think they'll take you seriously. As for the confidentiality of the cutting-edge technology, our sample creation contract states that any information we obtained from your company will remain confidential, so don't worry.
You think you're so smart, being just a subcontractor.
Yesterday, in a company meeting, George and Edward said this to me.
We've been hearing not so great things about Johnson Motors lately. Seems like this Jeff guy is quite a character, from what we've heard from various sources and your reports. If the documents don't make it in time, we decided to cancel the contract.
But canceling a $70 million contract.
Yes, it's a big deal for us too, but that's why we prioritized limiting damage over profit.
I'm coming over now. Wait there.
The call was abruptly cut. Still with that top-down attitude even now. I had the call on speaker, so George, Edward, and several others heard it.
What kind of face will he show up with? All right, then, let's wait him. Maybe go for dinner afterward.
George, Edward, and I waited in the conference room. Jeff and Charles, the president of Johnson Motors, arrived.
We heard from Jeff. We're truly sorry.
Excuse me, but what did Jeff tell you, Charles?
He said the contract couldn't be finalized due to a traffic jam.
I played the recording of my phone call with Jeff to Charles at full volume on my cell phone. I once had a dispute with a client over a phone conversation about what was said and what wasn't. Since then, I've made it a point to record all my calls.
What does this mean? Jeff, you reading. That's not what you said.
I get caught in traffic after eating.
I thought something was off. Didn't understand why Franklin Industries would cancel the contract, but now I get it. So, do you have any more of Jeff's words on your phone? If so, I'd like to hear them.
I unhesitatingly let Charles hear everything.
Guy, and Yum. Are they mocking us? Remember their place, subcontractor. The old guy asked you something. Show me. Explain quickly. How dare you, a subcontractor, rush the main contractor?
That's enough. Thank you.
That was quite a friendly conversation.
I've been telling you all along. Franklin Industries is a cooperative company. What's with this subcontractor talk? I said do as you like, but remember, there's responsibility. We're removing him from this project. Would you mind accepting requests from us directly from now on?
Considering all of Jeff's actions, words, and attitudes, it's clear his lack of management is also Charles' responsibility. A $70 million project is huge for us too, but the damage we've suffered is immeasurable. After weighing everything, we've decided to withdraw from all future dealings with Johnson Motors. That's all from us.
What? Just because I made a little mistake, you're pulling out of all future dealings? What about all the good we've done before? Not even a shred of gratitude.
That's not true. Personally and professionally, we've endured humiliation from you, Jeff Talbot.
How do you know that name?
The technician who came with the sample last time is from our group company, Northfield Metalworking.
What? That doesn't matter now.
Originally, Jeff worked as an employee at Northfield Metalworking. He was a good-looking guy who had been a club host, renowned for his unparalleled way with women, reportedly spending nights with different women every day. Amidst this lifestyle, he met Charles' daughter, and unexpectedly, she informed him of her pregnancy. Jeff, planning to leave his job in the town, was delayed by the woman who was supposed to leave with him. In a twist of fate, he was forcibly taken to the Charles house. Jeff, who didn't care about which woman he was with, was surprised when he arrived at the house he was taken to. He realized that as a subcontractor's employee, he had become a candidate to be the president of a main contracting company. It was what you might call a stroke of luck, marrying into a wealthy family. After the wedding, he got a big house, luxury foreign cars. It seemed like he was on top of the world, and soon he became a department head, and then a division head the following year. All this information came from the Northfield metalworking technician and Steve from Johnson Motors. Could it be, Jeff, are you just a high school grad, or did you even drop out? Are you below the lowly level you talk about?
What do you think I'm a high school dropout?
You know Thomas, right? He was tough on us in club activities. I'm a junior from your school.
Did you graduate from Lincoln High?
Yes.
You, Jeff, Harry, and my father, and Harry's father all graduated from Lincoln High.
Well, it's a prestigious school.
Yeah, I was the top student in my local middle school. But when I got to high school, I was surrounded by geniuses. Lost all motivation. I started working as a club host. Yeah, I dropped out. So what? I'm a lowlife.
Anyway, being a lowlife doesn't matter. We're adults. We'll stop dealings with Johnson Motors and claim unpaid payments and damages. We'll see you in court.
What does this mean? A subcontractor suing the main contractor?
Jeff, It seems you've been acting the same elsewhere. Unpaid wages, arrogant behavior. Your last card was threatening to stop dealings with us. Now you know how that feels.
A subcontractor, of all people. Whatever happens is not my problem. I'll have it made somewhere else.
If you can, please do. Thank you.
Understood. We'll take this as an expensive lesson. We'll take it to heart.
Charles made him apologize again.
Darn it. I'll find someone to make it.
Charles grabbed Jeff and they left together. Jeff had found a company overseas willing to manufacture the parts for half the price we had quoted. He called our office recently, boasting about how relieved he was to have the parts delivered on time and wishing he'd gone with them from the start. A few weeks later, there was a recall at one of Johnson Motors' clients. It was caused by defective parts supplied by them. The client demanded a hefty compensation. It turned out that Jeff had the parts made overseas based on the design drawings we had provided for the main contractor. Those drawings were for the sample, and the final product required an additional 100 improvements. Jeff was fired for the entire fiasco. He also got divorced, was kicked out of his house, and he ended up with a massive burden of alimony and child support. I heard a rumor from a salesperson I know that Jeff was seen working shakily at a construction site, but unfortunately, I couldn't confirm it. Johnson Motors, despite using our sample design, faced a huge lawsuit from the main contractor for leaking it. Moreover, the overseas company that used the design as a base went on to make several improvements and launched it as their own hit product. A few years later, rumors of them going public were quashed, and it seemed like they could go under at any time. We couldn't take jobs from Johnson Motors anymore, but we received offers from 3 of the world's largest auto parts companies. The recall fiasco with Johnson Motors had spread the word about the sample we had created. After several remote meetings and performance tests on site, we negotiated in Japan and reached a mutual agreement. The deal amounted to over $70 million. My younger sister and brother graduated from college, my sister securing a job at a government office and my brother at a securities firm, easing my financial burden. Both of them attending public high school and a national university really eased my financial burden. Around that time, I asked Rachel out for dinner after a successful business deal. Learning that she was single, I half-jokingly invited her to a movie over the weekend, thinking it would never happen.
Sure, it's been years since I've been asked out on a date.
We dated for a year without our colleagues or superiors finding out, and then we got married. Rachel stays, and Harry becomes a house husband, right? I was often teased at work. It turned out everyone knew about us long before and had pretended not to notice. My sister and brother insisted on paying for the wedding, making our honeymoon possible. You always said Johnson Motors was a great company, which taught you a lot about sales.
Well, you learned a lot, didn't you?
That night, I recounted the day's events to Rachel, now my wife.
But it's sad for his wife and kids to get divorced.
Steve said Jeff never liked kids, never even held them once, or rather, his kids never warmed up to him. Even after getting married, his affairs were exposed. It seems like the divorce was due to a culmination of things, not just a work mistake.
What about you, Harry? Any affairs?
Me? I'm not handsome enough for that. I'm more worried about Rachel, a beautiful in a good shape woman. At work, I became responsible for 5 subordinates.
Is this thanks to your wife's support?
And the teasing continues.
Well then, should I wear this outfit today? Choosing clothes from my closet for today is enjoyable. And gathering various information from the morning is essential. Checking the weather forecast on the news and selecting appropriate clothing based on the weather and temperature. Of course, I also consider the occasion and the people I'll meet, depending on where I'm going. Since today's just some errands in the neighborhood, this should do. Besides, for that task, I have a pension-related matter to discuss. Could you please call Mike, the branch manager? I'm a 75-year-old pension recipient, and I have a pension account at this bank. The male bank teller sitting at the counter had a face I had never seen at this branch before.
Huh?
At the counter, there were female bank tellers lined up beside him. This branch is one of the larger ones, so there are many customers. Today, I arrived in accordance with the opening time for counter services, so it was relatively empty. Of course, I properly received a numbered ticket from the ticket machine and waited in line. Ken and I requested to speak with Mike, the branch manager. Since my voice isn't particularly loud, I consciously spoke up again, in case it didn't reach him.
Huh? Don't think you can just call me Ken so casually.
I only called him that after seeing his name tag. But what's with this attitude? I wondered, feeling puzzled. Even though I'm not an unreasonable, complaining customer, I couldn't help but wonder about this attitude.
The branch manager won't be called for something as trivial as a pension consultation.
Ken firmly refused.
The branch manager only deals with important clients directly.
Smirking, he looked down on me in my fast fashion attire.
This is a mega bank, you know. Commoners should use regional banks.
That's what Ken said with a mocking grin. If you're so proud of working here at a mega bank, how about reevaluating your customer service attitude? I thought I was calmly stating the obvious.
No, someone like you are not our customers.
Ken's face turned red as he raised his voice. It was a classic fit of rage. Do young people call this reverse rage these days? I couldn't help but be impressed by the strange way he understood the situation. So perhaps I should voluntarily cease being a customer here, I whispered to Ken.
You know, it's better to go to a local bank suitable for common folks.
He chuckled and flashed the next customer's queue number to attend to. Well then, tell the branch manager I want to close my $1 billion account, I said as I tried to leave the place. Ken stood up.
What?
My unexpected words might have seemed like a misunderstanding.
What are you talking about, half asleep?
He looked down on me, firmly believing that I was a pauper, both in attitude and physically.
Can even laugh at the joke of someone as shabby as you having $1 billion.
He said with a mocking tone, though he laughed in disbelief.
Besides, when you think about risk hedging, you wouldn't have $1 billion in a single account. If you're going to tell lies, at least make them a bit more believable.
He shrugged, seemingly relieved. It seems you're not entirely clueless about finance. The mention of risk hedging from Ken intrigued me, and I quickly turned my thoughts to craft this response amidst our verbal exchange. His ability to remain unfazed by the substantial sum of $1 billion might just work to his advantage as a bank employee.
Shelley.
The branch manager rushed over in a panic, apparently having been in the back reception room.
Did something disrespectful happen?
The branch manager's face had turned red, so I relayed Ken's words as is.
Ken, who do you think this person is?
The branch manager yelled angrily at Ken.
What?
Facing a bewildered Ken once again, the branch manager couldn't hide his embarrassment.
This person, you see, is one of our most valued customers.
It was the first time I had seen the usually calm branch manager shout.
You can't be serious. Someone dressed like this old lady?
Ken remained unfazed, in stark contrast to the branch manager.
Ken, watch your words. How dare you be disrespectful to such a tremendously important customer?
Worried that the branch manager might burst a blood vessel, I couldn't help but try to pacify the situation. Now, Morris, let's talk this out calmly, I said as I was led into the back reception room. I took a seat on the sofa, a familiar place by now.
Sorry for the rudeness.
The branch manager seemed apologetic as he sat down on the opposite sofa. As for Ken, he remained standing there, sulking. The branch manager pulled his sleeve and made him take a seat next to him. I am a private investor, involved in real estate, stocks, venture capital, and various other investments. I introduce successful business owners to the mega bank and consult with the branch manager, Mike, on loan applicant evaluations. I play an advisory role in assessing the suitability of loan applicants. Certainly, as Ken pointed out, I did not deposit $1 billion as cash funds in this branch account. But I am proud that the profit I brought to this branch would not be contained in $1 billion. Oh, I guess it wasn't just pride. Because that's how Mike explained it to Ken when he was explaining me to him.
I didn't know you were such a great person.
Ken was drooping as the branch manager lectured him. At that moment, there was a knock at the reception room door. It was a certain someone.
The chairman.
The branch manager shouted in a crazy voice. That's no wonder. John, the former president of this mega bank, had appeared.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike. I told the deputy manager to let you through.
He was dressed casually, something unthinkable in his working life.
And please don't call me the chairman. I'm already retired from active duty, just an old man.
John laughed amusedly.
Shelley, thank you for the opportunity.
He shook my hand. The branch manager and Ken, who had no idea what was going on, just looked at us in amazement. I wonder if I look that shabby. I like this fashion. I asked John, who is wearing fast fashion from the same manufacturer as me.
No, I think you look youthful. By the way, who said anything about shabby?
John frowned as he said this. Ken here. I glanced at Ken, and he jumped up with a jerk of his shoulders.
I love our matching outfits, but do I look shabby?
John walked up to Ken and asked.
No, not at all.
Ken's voice was shaking. Can't we just leave the nastiness at that? I winked at John, and he laughed in an exhilarated voice. John is the same as ever. It was the same mischievous smile he had had since he was a child. I smiled at him, thinking that no matter how great he became, no matter how much he was admired by those around him, he still retained his boyish spirit.
John, what kind of relationship do you two have?
It's a fact that I had kept secret even from the branch manager, whom I have known for many years. But John, the former president of the company, and I have known each other since childhood. What I am trying to hide is the fact that I did what he asked me to do this time. The story goes back to 2 weeks ago. He contacted me, and as soon as we met, he asked me for some advice. I have a favor to ask you. Will you be my spy? He asked me. He was making a mysterious offer with a mysterious expression on his face. He was not hiding his excitement like a mischievous child. What is it? What kind of story? As I said, I, too, have a hidden curiosity that is just as strong as John. We are now 15 years past our second bad boy period, you might say.
There is a problem in our bank. His name is Ken, and I want you to spy on him to see if he really qualifies as bank employee.
Thus began the spy mission that John and I were on. Ken is the son of the president of a well-known company, a longtime acquaintance of John.
That company has made our bank their main bank.
I guess he was in a position where he could not make a statement that would condone the hiring of a connected person. But well, in layman's terms, it was a nepotistic hiring. Ken himself was not told that his father had talked to the bank president, and he believed that he was hired on his own performance. No, in fact, he graduated from a top university and got excellent grades in college. He was also studying to be a banker. He might have been hired even without connections. However, even after he joined the bank, his cocky attitude was unmistakable. At the branch he was previously at, he apparently caused trouble by not following the instructions of the branch manager to whom he was assigned. So he was transferred to a branch with a good reputation for employee training.
But it was hard to believe that employees who had completed their initial training at the school would be so arrogant to customers.
John apparently thought it was not fair to rely solely on the opinion of his former supervisor, who was critical of Ken. In the unlikely event that a disciplinary action needs to be taken, the decision cannot be made by accepting only the arguments of one side or the other. John must have thought that he also had a responsibility for having meddled in the hiring process. Therefore, he decided to use me as a test subject to make a decision by having me do the window work. In order not to inconvenience other customers, today was the day when Ken was assigned to this branch and started working as a teller.
I was also watching the earlier exchange on the waiting couch in disguise, wearing a hat, mask, and glasses.
John's revelation surprised both the branch manager and Ken.
I don't think they realized I was among the customers.
Again, he laughed loudly. Thus, I finished explaining to the branch manager and Ken our relationship as childhood friends, and that it was an aptitude test as bank employees. However, there was one thing that John did not reveal. He did not reveal the fact that he had been nepothetically hired. What Ken should have reflected on was that he did not have the slightest spirit of the customer is God. In customer service, the most important thing is to pay respect to the customers you deal with. This should have been drilled into him during his initial training, but Ken must have consciously covered his ears because he felt it went against his own policy. He was also hindered by his preconceived notions that pensioners are poor and that rich people should not be dressed in fast fashion all over. Ken probably never had any financial hardships, thanks to his father, who is a director and president of a well-known company. He seems to have been brought up in a privileged environment from an early age and has a strong sense of being an elected official. He is said to wear a high-brand suit on a regular basis, even more so than the average one worn by bank employees. The watch he wears now is a very expensive one, the price of which would buy a luxury car.
To you, who are more interested in high-brand products, it may indeed look shabby.
John picked up the t-shirt he was wearing. Don't be rude. It's from an apparel company I'm invested in. We, who had happily taken on Operation Spy, were dressed in matching t-shirts and chinos. This morning, I informed John, you should wear that outfit I gave you as a gift. It is an up-and-coming apparel manufacturer that offers low-price products and has been gaining momentum recently. It has been getting a lot of media coverage. Even though it is a fast fashion brand, I think the design and quality are not that bad. That's why I invest in them, but well, you can't deny that they're not as good as brand name products.
I'm sorry, I like it too.
John scratched his head and apologized.
I am very sorry. It was my lack of education.
The branch manager apologized flatly, but it couldn't be helped, since there would have been no way to educate him if it was only his first day on the job.
No, I knew it was an odd time for the move, but there was nothing in the handover documents.
So the branch manager was not informed that Ken was a person of note. I was curious to know what he meant, so I asked him.
I knew it.
John nodded as if he alone was convinced. Apparently, the trouble that caused Ken's reassignment was known only to upper management within the bank.
I thought the branch manager would lead Ken to the straight and narrow.
It seems that John, who was consulted by the current executive, took the lead at his own discretion. However, he left the preparation of handover materials to Ken's former boss. This also seems to have been an action based on John's policy of not trusting only what one side says. Was it really only one-sidedly Ken's fault that the trouble occurred? There were still doubts about the supervisor that he had harbored for some time, so it was also a major spy operation to find out.
I guess they deliberately did not communicate Ken's bad reputation and the cause of the trouble, to lower the branch manager's reputation and to gain an advantage in the race for promotion.
It seems that Ken's former boss was also a very devious type.
I'm sorry, too. I was caught up in appearances and behaved rudely.
Ken looked remorseful.
What does it matter what customer looks like? No matter what our customers are wearing, we must be sincere with them.
The branch manager had a point. If he learned from the ground up under this boss, it might be possible to retrain Ken. This gave me hope.
Thank you for your patience. The number 32. Please come to this counter.
When I visited the bank again later that day, I was greeted by Ken's fresh smile.
Shelley, I apologize for the trouble I caused you the other day.
I hurriedly stopped Ken as he got up from his seat. I came here today to consult with you, Ken. When I told him so, he looked surprised. In fact, I asked John about it after we finished spying on him. He said, even though you were hired because of your nepotistic background, wouldn't you have been given a shot without any retraining? John defended Ken. Ken has the talent of a banker. He is studying finance diligently and has a lot of knowledge for a young man. All he needs now is to have his personality knocked back into shape, he said. I thought that if John had such high expectations of him that he was willing to show him mercy, he might have a chance to become a great banker. After all, he has a sharp and personable branch manager by his side. He may be a gem in the rough that will shine if he is polished and free from the mud of preconceived notions and prejudice. I thought it might not be a bad idea to invest in his future, and smiled at him.